Good evening, and welcome back to the weird and the wonderful with Strange Bones. That's me. And of course, as we begin our live, I'm going to have to remind you of the basics of what we do and why we do it, which is to say that we go around the world looking at different countries and cultures to see what strange paranormal and supernatural things are out there and whether or not there might be anything to believe in, or is it all just strange imagination? As you know, of course, you don't have to agree with anything or disagree with anything. It's entirely up to you, but we do expect you to be polite. Otherwise, we give the boot. But with that said, welcome. I'm very glad that you have joined in with us, and I hope that you enjoy what we talk about on this channel. Daniel, hey, and how are you doing?
Hello, puppy.
Are you
You
in?
are very beautiful for me. Oh my gosh.
And how are you this evening?
Hello, puppy.
I'm very good. And you?
I'm glad you're in good form.
Thank you very much.
So, what do you know about the topic of the hauntings and paranormal and ghosts?
Can you most I know very much of it. So I had last night a sighting of I saw two creatures with four legs enter my room. Me and my friend saw that, yeah,
Okay,
and they had like red eyes,
okay,
and it
that
was like 2 meters tall, I think, like skinwalkers, almost like that.
okay. That sounds fairly frightening. What did you do?
We did not do much. We just sat there and just looked at it. We were very frightened. We got under the bed. Yeah.
That
And
sounds
you,
like
what did you see? Did you see everything?
well, over the years I have absolutely seen a few things, which is partly why I started this live, which is aimed at looking at what people say is out there, going around the world and looking at different countries and cultures. And you normally do one country per live.
The things you see is actually real, no? It's explained in the Bible.
They certainly do speak of many such things in the Bible, and that we have not yet done Judea or any of the areas around Israel yet. We have been saving that one. I've saved some of the more complicated ones deliberately because they will obviously take a lot more research. But we will get
Where
to
are you
them.
from?
Where am I from? I am from South Africa.
Oh, same. And is there stuff you see in South Africa?
Oh, yes, plenty in South Africa. Plenty to talk about. We
Like
did
what?
that. Well, of course, on the side of ghosts and things, there's a lot of haunted places all over the country. And in terms of strange creatures and what have you, I mean, I think everybody knows of things like the Tokolosh and more, which are all spoken of. But there's plenty of
Yeah.
other things as well.
Have you seen the Tokolosh?
I have not. There is one I have not seen.
No.
Not
Have Have you like seen like demons and stuff?
over the years, yes, there have been a number of things that I have seen, including shadow creatures and what have you.
Oh, are you a Christian or not?
Am I a Christian? No,
Yeah. Oh,
not anymore. I was, But
Why did you intend to leave the religion?
I stopped pretty much on any religion. It I don't know if it makes sense to you, but I will say it is more the religion that I stopped than the spirituality, if that makes sense. Formal religion doesn't work for me.
So you're a Satanist,
No.
but you believe in demons.
I think that it's possible there is a great many things out there that we don't necessarily know, and I would go as far as to say that if you are a Christian, the Bible tells you that there are many such things out there. So you would still have to believe in them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but do you like worship demons or not? Like,
No.
oh,
I would say by and large I don't worship anything.
okay. So you're an atheist.
Agnostic rather than atheist.
Oh,
Yeah. You know the difference?
yeah. Have you like spoken to a demon or not?
Spoken directly to, no, but back in the day when I worked in the church, I worked alongside the exorcist for KwaZulu-Natal, and I
Yeah.
did see a couple of we said they were demons. They certainly appeared to be. We were involved in a number of exorcisms of the same. So, yep. Seen at least. Talk to? No, it is strongly advised that you never do.
Yeah.
If you are not part of any religion, what explanation can you give for these supernatural things that you have seen and believe?
You see, that is an excellent question, and in part, that is the exact reason for this channel. That we look at what different people say is out there, and then we decide whether or not it might be real or not. And if it is real, then of course we do need some kind of an explanation as to what it might be. So that's sort of the aim, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Have you heard of the Euphrates River?
Have I say that again? I missed it.
Have you heard of the Euphrates River in Turkey?
Yes, I have indeed heard of the Euphrates River in Turkey.
What's your opinion on it? Like it's drying up when there's 4 demons cast in the Euphrates River. Yeah.
Actually, that's a very interesting thing, and for everyone else that's joined us on the channel, just to give you a little background here, from very, very way back, there has been, call it a story. Those who are within the religious belief, of course, would say it was a prophecy, whereby it is said that trapped under the Euphrates River is supposed to be a set of 4 demons. And should they start to escape, the Euphrates, which of course is a very, very big river and very strongly flowing, it will start to dry up. Now, they say that water levels have started dropping in the Euphrates for whatever reason. And of course,
80% from 1983. Yeah.
yes. So some people say that this is the effect of the prophecy, that this is exactly what is happening. Whereas, of course, those who don't believe would say, no, it's a scientific thing, climate change, whatever. It's arguable which way, and it depends on your beliefs, of course. If it is true, then it would imply that this is one of the signs of coming to the end of the world, which I certainly hope is not true, because I rather like this world. But yeah, that is a thing that is going around at the moment.
But do you believe in the 4 demons?
Do I think it's true?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know enough about the original prophecies, where it came from and why. to be able
Yes.
to make a statement one way or another. I don't obviously belong to the originating religion, which I believe
Yes.
came from very early religions in Turkey.
So, how are you like agnostic and you believe like in demons, but not in like like the good?
Okay, I didn't say I didn't believe.
Yeah,
I
but
said
like
that I don't worship. There's a
get
difference.
off my point, you know?
So, just to clarify for everyone else,
Yeah.
if you are atheist, it means literally, interestingly enough, thing is today is from the Greek
Yeah.
stuff. Atheist means there is no God. So if you are
Yeah.
atheist, you believe there is no such thing as God whatsoever. So there is
Yeah.
nothing to believe in.
Mm.
If, however,
Yeah.
you are agnostic, it comes from the Greek agnosis, meaning you can't know. So what you're saying is
Yes.
that you cannot know who God is. There is one, you just can't know who he is.
Yeah.
So in other words, you would not be a follower of formal religions, but you don't deny the existence of a God, just that you cannot know anything about him.
Thank you very much.
So,
No, I respect your opinion very much, but I like to read you. My sister will read you some stuff.
Oh, no. I just wanted to ask if you ever have been able to capture any evidence of these supernatural things you claim to have witnessed or.
oh, absolutely, yes. I well, evidence in terms that convinced me, absolutely. Evidence that I could bring away and show to everybody else, no. It was more stuff in the moment, and generally when things like that happen, you're not really thinking of gathering up evidence. It's more dealing with what's there. So I must admit I haven't got evidence I can prove to others, but I've certainly convinced myself. And to clarify for your brother, do I believe there is something out there? Yes, I do. What it is, of course, is the big question. Um, Whether we can say that it is one thing or another um, requires more information. Can we say it like that? Yeah, I think that makes sense. So it's hard to say exactly what you're dealing with when it comes to the spiritual side of things. It's certainly um, easier if you follow within a religion because they tell you that it is that. But if you try to look at it, shall we say, from a more scientific standpoint, what exactly it is that's out there is the big question.
Have you observed any physical traces or changes in the environment following these events?
Yes, absolutely. I think one of the biggest ones that I ever saw, I actually attended a situation with, I would call it a failed exorcism, whereby there were a number of things that started in a particular house, and it got worse and worse until eventually the exorcist was called in. They attended to it and did. There's a whole long process that is, to see whether or not it's real or whatever. It was established something was happening. They did the preliminary prayers and things at the house, and that just made whatever was there very angry. They came back and did a full exorcism of the place. It did not work, and things went really bad. And eventually, what happened? It was a house in northern Zululand, and the local chief stepped in. He got the entire village together. They built a new house further away for the family, moved the family into it, and burnt their whole old house to the ground, and then salted the earth. And that was the only way it stopped what was happening. So a little bit extreme, but there were objects being moved, things caught fire, There was a whole lot that went on, and yes, I did see it myself.
Do you ever observe any patterns of commonalities among these experiences? For example, the time of day, emotional state, or specific locations?
Well, interesting that you ask that, because again, that is the exact point, if you will, of this channel, that we're looking for commonality, things that we can say, all right, if it is that, it will work always in that way.
Yeah.
In general, I find it's very hard to find easy commonalities. So it does become difficult to pinpoint exactly how things work. Um, I think from what I have seen and understand, there are certainly ghosts, and ghosts are very much so the, shall we say, the remnants in some manner or form of actual people that once were alive.
Can I just ask you a question?
Yes.
Does Christians see ghosts or not? In
Oh,
in
yes.
Europe?
Oh, yes.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes.
Mm.
I used to be in the church, as I say, and in fact, I was a monk for 9 years.
Yeah.
And I saw a number of ghosts while I was a monk. So,
In
yeah,
your view, is there any particular reason or trigger for these repeated occurrences?
yes, dependent on what you're talking about. Okay, so if we stick with ghosts as ghosts, okay, the standard description, it's a person, they died, and for some reason didn't move on, okay? In every case where that has happened, it's been when at their death there was an extremely high level of emotion that left an echo of some kind. Whether it's the actual spirit or just an echo of that is harder to argue. So in that case, there had to be a very strong emotional reason for the person not to have moved on. In terms of other things, however, it depends on what you are referring. So if you're talking something that, as a Christian, you would say is a traditional demon, an actual demon, that works very, very differently to the way it would for a ghost or something like that.
How do you differentiate between genuine supernatural experiences and possible alternative explanations such as illusions, physiological phenomena, or dreams?
Well, okay, so the proper methodology that is advised. Hey, Logs, welcome, welcome. To answer your
Welcome. I'm welcomed.
good stuff. So
What are we talking about tonight?
we're talking about ghosts, paranormal, supernatural, and things like that. And we were just asked a question of how do we know if it's real or if it's maybe another normal, natural explanation. And as I was taught, when it comes to what they call the process of an exorcism, contrary to what a lot of people see on TV, which really, I'm going to tell you straight off, it doesn't work like that. That really is a lot of rubbish. Oh, thank you. In terms of the proper methodology, see, kind people bring me hot water bottles. It's lovely.
That's nice.
It is what they call a process. So if you came to me as your official priest and said, I think that there's something in my house. Okay, the very first thing that has to be done is the primary investigation, where I would come around, I would spend time with you, talk to you, and I would see if I think maybe it's something else that's frightening you, or if maybe you're a little bit mad or something like that. You always go and check first. It's psychological, or maybe there's something weird in the building with the piping or the electrics or something. So you actually look for other explanations first. Now, you don't make it as obvious because obviously the person's called you and are afraid. So you conduct a couple of preliminary prayers with the person, which also is a test, because if there really is something bad in there, it will react to prayers and things. So it's kind of a test both of the people and of the place. Okay. Now, while any ordained minister can perform an exorcism, they are not allowed to except under extreme circumstances. Okay, so what that means is if I come in as your minister and I think, okay, no, this is real, something is dodgy here, I will not be the one doing the exorcism. You contact the official assigned minister who is the exorcist for your area. Now, they're chosen very strictly from specific kinds of people, and they're trained with, because you have to go through a whole process even before you go near the place of prayer, fasting, and the whole works. So they would be contacted. They will come and then they give a professional examination of the place. And if they say, yeah, there's something dodgy here, it's at that point that you begin the actual process of doing an exorcism, which can take weeks. It's not just like walk in, say a prayer, and go home. I know that one of my friends, when I was training in the seminary, he was way ahead of me, but he was being trained as an exorcist. And you have to fast for a full 24 hours before you even go near the place. You have to do a number of prayers along the way, just for preparation, and you have to confess and everything before you go there. If it really is an evil spirit, then they have an ability to know if you are what they call in sin, and they will use that against you. So you have to go through a whole process of personal cleanliness and everything, even before you get to the place. And only then can you begin the actual ceremony of exorcism. And you may have to do it 2 or 3 times.
Could you provide a comprehensive narrative of your first encounter with a supernatural being?
Wow, that would be very difficult. It would depend on what variety you are talking about. If you're talking about a ghost, I can certainly tell you the story of that. And what was really quite interesting was that I had no idea there was a ghost there until afterwards. So it seems
That's the thing.
well, how true this is, I'm not 100% certain on, but it seems that some people are able to see ghosts quite easily and others are not. Now, obviously, that begs
if there is a ghost around, I only notice after it's left.
That's a common thing. Now, in terms of ghosts that I have seen, some are very, very obviously a ghost. They're not fully real. You can see through them partly, etc. So you see it and you know it. So that's easy. However, in some cases, and often for me anyway, they look exactly like a normal person. So unless they do something that a person can't, I couldn't tell you that they were a ghost. So the best example that I have for that, I was actually in school and I was going down to, when I say I wasn't in school at that moment. I was still at school so I was 16, I think. And I was on my way down to the next town to see a friend. And back in the day, it was a lot safer and easier, I suppose. So I was walking down the road. I was hitchhiking, and I got to the bottom of a hill. I don't know how well you know South Africa.
Yeah,
Um,
I know it quite well.
okay, now if you are going down from Hillcrest to Pinetown, there's
Mm-hmm.
a hill called Fields Hill, and
Yeah.
it's a very, very steep and winding hill with a
Yeah.
huge amount of traffic on it. So it's quite a dangerous hill. Um,
Mm.
and I just got to the bottom of the hill, and there was obviously a serious um, accident that had happened. Hey, Livza, welcome, welcome, welcome. One of our buddies joining in. That's good. So there was a huge crowd around. So obviously the thing had just happened. Much thanks for the likes, guys. Thanks. Um,
Uh,
so,
I also have a little story of a ghost I saw before.
well, let me tell you mine, and you can tell me if yours matches. So
Okay.
I get up to this crowd, and I couldn't get close because there was a lot of people. So I was curious, obviously, what's going on, what's happening. And at
Yeah.
that moment, the police arrived and they cleared all the crowd away. But just as they were arriving, I turned to the guy standing next to me, who was dressed in a cyclist's outfit with a bike and a cycle helmet on. And I said to him, "Hey, what's going on?" And he looked at me and he says, "A guy's just been run over by a car." So, oh, okay. But then the police
Dang.
arrived and they cleared everybody away. And in front of me on the ground there was a car and the guy had been hit and he was clearly dead. And he was the guy I had just asked what was happening. And when I looked behind me for the guy, he was
Wait a
gone.
minute.
And I was like, wait, hold on. Yeah.
Wait. I would have full on ran out of my car.
Well, I was walking, so I was quite capable of moving away quite quickly. But yes, it caught me very much by surprise because, I couldn't tell that he was in
Yeah, he was just next to you talking to you.
exactly that. So it
It
was
would have been
a
like he had a
moment.
twin.
Well, I wondered, but except the only problem with that was there was nobody behind me, and it was a big flat open area. And I had looked at him, talked to him, looked forward, seen him on the ground, and immediately turned back. And if he was still
And he
there,
was gone.
yes, he couldn't have run away. I would have seen him.
And you would have heard the footsteps.
Exactly so. So it was absolutely him. Now tell us your story.
So I was at a soccer match, right?
Yeah.
And then while I was live broadcasting, you could see a shadow running across every single chair, going through people.
Okay. That's an interesting one. Now, that case, at least you knew it was something like a ghost. Because,
Oh, and another time, I was I was also on the road, and you know those people next to the road that try to sell you stuff on the road.
yeah. Very common.
I talked to this guy because there was a heavy traffic jam. I said, what was happening? And he said there was a big car accident
Okay.
that involved a person. Apparently they went through their window, and I turned on the radio. I asked for the car guy's name. His name was Tando, I think.
Okay.
I listened to the radio. It says a man named Tando was thrown out of his window at a car accident.
There you go.
And after I heard the name, before they even finished the sentence, I'm looking back. Gone.
So you see, it seems that you can get what we can refer to as momentary ghosts, where people are still around before they've moved on. So
I honestly thought I was hallucinating when I saw him.
Well, it's a thing. And as I say, some people seem to be able to see them easily, and some people
I
never
mean,
see any at all.
some people just have like good eye vision and then just see like the outline of them in the shadow.
Well, there are a lot of versions of the reasons why, if you want, as to why some people can and some people can't. They don't all make sense, the explanations, but it does seem to be the case that some do see. And it's
I
just one of the
mean,
things.
do ghosts have like a reflection? Because they might be taking a picture, they see someone behind them, but in the camera they don't see anyone.
Well, that's one of the big arguments. It's an interesting point, and I suspect that it goes back to an argument. Um, if you go back in the stories of vampires, okay, they say in the legends at least that vampires don't have a reflection. Okay, now the reason why is this. It isn't true nowadays, but originally mirrors were made with a silver backing,
Yeah,
okay, which is what make the reflection have a reflection.
yeah,
Nowadays they use other things, but it was always believed that silver is something that has an effect on the supernatural. We know that werewolves are only supposed to be shot with a silver bullet, vampires can't touch silver, and. So, from way back when, the stories have always been that when you create an image, it can only be done for normal things because supernatural things react badly to silver. Now, you may
yeah.
not realize this, but photographs originally, the way you made a photograph um, was with what they call silver nitrate.
Mm,
Okay, so photographs literally had silver in them. They don't anymore, of course.
yeah.
So originally it was thought that if you tried to photograph a ghost or a vampire or something like that, it
It would not
wouldn't
show.
work because of the silver. Now, how true is that? Well, I don't know because I don't have a camera that uses silver or a mirror that has a silver backing. So I couldn't test it. And nowadays you use your cell phone. There's no silver involved at all. So
Yeah, but can't you see if they're a ghost or not if they're shadowed, like the shadow that's supposed to be behind you if you're in the sun?
well, that's an interesting question. I can tell you for certainty that whenever I was in a moment where I actually saw something, I never thought to look for a shadow. So I don't know. Maybe I should have, which would be a very fair comment, you know. Maybe I
I mean,
should have checked, but in
ghosts
the
don't have
moment.
shadows, which I've. It's normal for a ghost not have a shadow because it's not their body reflecting off the sun. But sometimes
A fair point.
the ghost, even if the ghost will take notice that you're trying to see if they have a shadow or not.
It's a very good question, and it's one which we are going to have to add to our list of questions. We've got a number of things that have come up in the different lives that I've done where people have said ghosts do or don't do this or that, whatever. Um, and we've developed a list of questions to which we have not yet got answers, and that one's going to have to join the list. Do ghosts have shadows? And I don't know anyone else that is on the live now. Give us a comment. Do ghosts have shadows? And if so, is that something we can expect from a ghost? Let me know what you think, guys. And yeah, we'll see if we can get that.
Aren't there like different types of ghosts?
There appears to be.
Because you know the obvious ones that can go through walls and stuff, but can't there be like ones that can hold stuff?
Okay, so from what, as I say, we've been doing this live for a while now, and we've built up a list of ranks, I call them, of ghosts. Okay, so
Yeah.
you start with the absolute lowest rank of all. Okay,
A normal
and
ghost.
no, even before that, it's what you call an orb. So you know how they say you see funny lights floating around, orbs?
Oh yeah, those.
Okay, so that appears to be the absolute lowest grade. It cannot manifest itself in any way. All you get is a little light. Okay, so that seems to be the lowest grade of ghost that you can get. And it
And it's
does,
the easiest one to basically see.
right. So ghosts seem to need energy to be able to manifest. And that's why sometimes you also will get cold spots. They've drawn heat away from the place, trying to either manifest or do something.
No
Which
wonder my room's
sort of
always
makes,
that cold.
so it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Okay, now your
I'm just thinking the
next,
hottest, considering I'm the closest to my roof.
there you see. Now your next grade of ghost is what they call an echo. Now an echo, you can see it, but you can't interact with it, and it can't interact with you. So it
Basically, they're like the original ghost.
kind of, they repeat the same thing over and over and over. They never change it. So they will, for example, be seen walking down a passage. They never go anywhere else. They can't seem to go anywhere else. If you try and stop them, they just walk on by. They're just
They
like
just
an
go
echo.
past, they go through you.
Yes, so you can't interact with them, they can't interact with you. So it's just an echo of something that happened for some reason.
I really wish ghostbusting was an actual job.
It would be cool, I've got to be honest. It would be cool.
Yeah.
So then your next grade up is where you have a ghost that you can hear. And sometimes they can react to you and you can interact with them. So they might knock or make noises, or you hear voices. And if you try to talk to them, they can respond in some way. So obviously,
Basically, what we just talked about doing a traffic thing.
yeah. So they seem to have a little bit more energy, as it were.
Mm.
Then moving up, you've got ones that you can actually properly see. So a proper apparition. So they can interact with you. If you try and talk to them, they can move around. They can go and do different things in different places. They're not just an echo in the same place over and over and over.
Yeah.
Okay. Generally, though, they can't physically affect the world.
They can't physically, but you could just see them walking around.
Right. Now, the next level up, they can do basic effect on the world. So, causing the lights to flicker, messing with things like that.
Yeah.
But then you get the next higher level where they can actually move objects and possibly touch you, or you could feel them push you, or something like that. So,
Imagine being slapped in the face by a ghost.
well, there are places where they say it has happened. Now, the problem with that level is obviously it takes a lot more energy for the ghost. And usually, the ghosts that have the most energy are the ones that have the most emotional interference at their death, if that makes sense. So, where somebody's been murdered, where somebody's been executed, things like that, where it's an extreme situation. And there's an interesting, I forget which place it is now off the top of my head, it's a prison, where they had a guy who was like a serial killer of note, and he was executed in the prison, but his ghost has apparently haunted this one
The
cell.
prison.
And they say that if you go in there, they don't allow it anymore. You're forbidden to go in because they say visitors have been punched and scratched and physically hurt. And obviously, that was a very bad person in life and a very angry person. So the amount of emotion was very high. But as a ghost, as a poltergeist, they've come back as an angry ghost, which is therefore dangerous.
Yeah.
You see, it seems that if when you die, regardless of who did what to you or whatever, if you die in a state of personal peace, you won't become a ghost. You will go on to wherever spirits go after death.
Yeah.
Okay, so generally the happy and good people don't become ghosts
Yeah. They
because
go straight up.
yeah, they're chill. They don't have that deep emotional turmoil that causes a ghost.
They'll be dancing all the way to heaven.
There you go. And so in a way, for the most part, good or happy people don't become ghosts simply because they've no reason to.
And they were talking about ghosts. I'm so confused because I don't even have a remote for my TV and it just turned off.
Ah, you see, maybe you have a TV ghost. We joke about that in my place. Our TV turns itself on every now and then for no reason. So we say it's a TV ghost.
What did my TV do?
Well, who's to say? That's the question. Because, okay, that's another question in terms of ghosts, all right? Because
I mean, it could have been owned by someone who turned into a ghost and now possesses the TV.
it's a possibility in that regard, and I'll tell you why. Okay, so first of all, in the case of that mass murderer that was executed, it's obvious why he became a ghost. Because he was a really bad person and very, very angry. So that makes sense. It's not nice, but it makes sense. But in terms of things, ghosts tend to have to be bound or anchored to something. So either to a place, which is
Could be
why,
to an object.
right? So specific places can be haunted, or to an object. So an object can be haunted, and that's why many museums end up being haunted because they've gathered together objects from all over the world and things. So it makes sense, right? And the last version, which is the rarest, is that people can be haunted. A ghost can attach itself to you for some reason.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so objects absolutely can be. Why they would be is another question and not so easy to answer.
Well, that TV's not my TV anymore. It's a ghost TV. I'm leaving it alone. Sorry for trespassing.
There you go. It's probably a fair answer. Watch it during the day. They say, here's another question, just as one of the kind of questions we've encountered. Many, many, many ghosts only appear at night. Why? Surely if a ghost is haunting a place, they are haunting it all the time?
Yeah, but I think it's mostly at night where even if someone goes in, they can't see it.
Well, you see, there's a thing. Why do you almost always only get ghosts at night?
I mean, like most people are asleep at night. So,
Exactly. So maybe they're all over the place and we just don't see it because we're asleep.
yeah.
It's a good question. I don't know. But that, again, is the point of doing this live, that we are trying at least to see if there are commonalities or answers. And I must say that while we have found one or two answers, mostly what we've found is more questions.
Mm.
So there you go.
the first thing I can imagine right now is a ghost should start drinking my Coke.
Yeah, that's
That's
an
all I'm
interesting
thinking right
point.
now.
Would it be possible if a ghost is strong enough to physically affect the world? Could they drink the Coke?
Could they even eat?
Well, in a number of cultures, especially those that have a great reverence for the ancestors and such, they say that they do provide food and drink for the ghosts of their ancestors, who will then eat the spiritual part of it, and then everybody else eats what's left, which is the mere physical part of it.
Yeah.
So some would say, on a certain way, yes, whereas it's arguable because how do you prove it?
I mean, I kind of don't mind if a ghost hunts us out, to be honest. I'm moving out next week.
Oh, well, there you go. So if there is a ghost, tell them they can have the
Doesn't
house
bother
to
me if
themselves.
a ghost here.
There you go. That's a win.
Just as long as it doesn't drink all my Coke.
Well, apparently they can only drink the spirit of the Coke, so you'll have all the rest of it at least.
Finally, I'm not worrying about Coke.
Well, better to worry about Coke than about whether or not there's a ghost there. But I
Yeah.
will tell you this, in my experience at least, except in very rare situations, 90% of ghosts are never a problem. They might be a bit of a shock to see, but they don't hurt you, which is a good thing.
Please stop turning on and off my TV.
Well, then maybe they just don't like that channel.
That's a good point.
So yeah, that's about all I can say so far from what we've found. But with that said, tonight, of course, we have another culture and country to look at to see if we can find any interesting stories about ghosts and cryptids, for that matter, because cryptids as well we are doing. You know what a cryptid is?
I don't remember what you did last night.
What did we do last time? We last time was South America, and it was starts with a B. It's gone out my head now.
Brazil.
No, it wasn't Brazil. It was one of the
Bolivia.
Bolivia. There you go. It was Bolivia that we did with the silver mines and all of that going on, and the ghostly trains.
Maybe next time we should really do like Brazil, because like a ghost could be in the forest.
We have not yet done Brazil. It is on the list to do, but what I normally do is if I do one in South America, I won't do the next one in South America. I'll jump to another continent in the world just to keep it different, because the things in Bolivia will have many commonalities with what is in Brazil, Peru, Chile, and all of those.
Yeah.
So I jump across. So tonight I was going to do Greece.
Greece?
In fact, Greece. Yes, there are lots of
There's
reasons.
a lot to discuss there.
Oh, a huge amount to discuss in Greece. Because, of course, a very old culture.
And plus, it's like, I think it's the oldest country in the world.
Interestingly, no. It's a bit of an argument as to which is, but in terms of what we can call a culture that records, okay? So if you talk, if you say a country has to be advanced enough that it actually records things. Now, of the really old ones, there are not many. Greece is pretty good. They do go back with their records quite a long way, but they're not the oldest.
And plus, they're even called ancient Greece.
Absolutely. But don't forget, China goes very far back with
Yeah.
writing, but even further, India. The
Okay,
records
India kind of does not shock me.
exactly. So in terms of actual records of things, you can go really far back with India. But it's an argument as to which really is. Egypt's pretty old, but
Also with the name ancient behind
yeah,
the.
but how much they recorded. You see, part of the problem as well is whether or not not just whether or not they recorded, but whether or not we found those records.
Yeah, because there's still lots to discover in the pyramids and stuff.
100%. So they are still discovering things lost in the desert.
And
So
Greece is also almost. I think Greece is like almost done with all the stuff that they discovered.
I would not say that's entirely true. There's more things being discovered. Did you know that there are pyramids in Egypt
Yes.
under the water?
Yes.
So at a time in Greece, certain bits that are now under the ocean originally were actual dry land.
Yeah.
Now, who exactly lived
Until the
there?
floods came.
Well, this is the thing. There are, if you go back in a number of different cultures, there are records of more than one flood that occurred at some stage. And don't forget as well, when people in older times wrote it destroyed the world, they mean the world that they knew. And people didn't travel like we do nowadays. So the known world was pretty small compared with what we actually know as being the world. So
Yeah.
there was more than one flood that took out quite large areas.
I
Hey
mean,
Vortex, welcome. Glad you could join. Thanks for the likes there, buddy. Sorry.
wasn't Egypt like massive before?
No. Very interesting. The reason Egypt has never been that massive is for a couple of reasons, okay? First and most common reason is they were kind of forced to stick around along the Nile for the most part. As you know, Egypt's incredibly dry. There's not a lot of places that are easy to live in if you're not next to a good water
The
source.
Nile.
The Nile. Also, they didn't need to expand. Because of where they were, if you wanted to do trading between countries, the place to do it
You
was
didn't
in
have to
Egypt.
move. Yeah, I mean,
So,
isn't Egypt's quite close? I think they're even touching to Asia on the
Asia,
Saudi Arabian
Europe,
part.
and Africa. Now, remember, back in the day, across the top of Africa, there were a number of very powerful kingdoms, Ethiopia being one of them, Nubia being another. So, quite a few powerful kingdoms that wanted to trade. And so they would trade with Egypt, who would trade with Asia and with Europe, and they could then be a trade hub. They didn't need to expand to become incredibly rich, and they did.
Yeah. So they could easily trade stuff.
Correct.
They could
So,
trade stuff with countries around them in Africa and in Asia.
right, now the problem with conquering other countries is this. Once you've done that, you now have to keep control of it. Okay,
You
so
need to
it's
make sure all the parts of it are still safe.
and not just safe, that the people that you conquered don't rise up. So it means a lot of continuous work. And as we know, the Romans conquered huge areas, which over time they lost all of it because they couldn't keep up the constant control.
Yeah.
Whereas,
Germany. I think Germany also lost a few pieces of land.
Little bits. Germany they couldn't properly get into. North of England they couldn't get into. They managed a lot of France. They did not get very far in Africa
France is
at all.
thing.
But the thing is, if you can conquer, so to speak, a country via trade, you leave them in charge of it. All you're doing is getting their money. You don't need to control it. So
Yeah.
it's far better to dominate through good trade than by actually conquering a place. And that was the great strength of Egypt. They could.
Russia didn't Russia like gain pieces, like a huge piece, and then lost the Alaska to America?
Oh, that you know, the arguments over who owns Alaska have been going on forever. I've never
Yeah, but
understood it because there's really not a lot there to want, to be honest
I
with you.
mean, there's a lot of oil.
Again, remember, it's not just about whether or not it's there, it's whether or not you can get it. And it's
Yeah.
incredibly expensive to go and drill through ice sheets. You know, is it
Yeah.
worth it?
At the end of the day, your door's gonna be covered up in snow anyway.
There you go. So yeah, it's a hard thing, but I will say that Greece absolutely is very much an ancient place and has been keeping records for many centuries. So there should be a lot of history and therefore a lot of ghosts. So let's see what we've got. So according to the research done for today's live on Greece, we are going to start with ancient Greece rather than modern Greece. And absolutely, we will say that there are 3 types of ghosts that were recorded. So according to the ancient Greece, you've got 3
And
different
of course,
kinds of ghosts.
and all those 3 types are, of course, in Greece. Where else
Yes,
would it be?
they are all in Greece and written in Greek. So you have the Ataphoi, which are the unburied.
I've never actually learned.
Have you not learned Greek?
I've never learned a word of Greek.
Well, here are 3 for you. So you have the Ataphoi, the unburied dead, the Auri, which are those who died an untimely death, so through sickness or through being killed, and then the Biathanatoi, violent death. So, okay.
Didn't they go through the plague?
Over the centuries, there have been many plagues, and they have indeed been recorded.
I was talking about where that plague was, where that guy with like the bird mask.
Okay, now that's where you're talking about happened in England.
Oh.
Those bird mask things were particularly an English thing. The plague doctors. But they were cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got 3 kinds
I mean, they
of...
look cool for how they looked cooler than they actually did.
Yes, that is true. So in ancient Greece, you had 3 kinds of ghosts. And they haunted the living, most especially if you didn't give them a proper burial rite. Okay, so you've got to bury them properly or else they come back and tell you off. There are quite a lot of haunted places and vengeful spirits, and some areas specifically are said to be prone to ghostly activity. So we do see that there are specific places. Now,
wait, so you're telling me they can come to you and correct you for not burying them properly?
well, it's a common thing that turns up in a number of the ancient cultures. Yes, that's what the ancient Greeks said. Now, you might argue that this was a story made up by the priest so that you would go and do the proper funeral rites and pay the priest. That could be the case, but nevertheless.
But even if I was in Greece, that would have been the dumbest thing I think I've ever heard.
Well, I suppose it depends on how you see ghosts. So your atafoi, people not
But at the
properly
end of the
buried.
day, you're putting him in a coffin and underground.
It depends on the culture. Some bury them underground, some bury them above ground, some burn them. Some leave
Some
them out.
burn them and then put their ashes in ground.
Yes, and some leave them out on raised platforms on the top of mountains so that the birds reduce them to a skeleton. It's called a sky burial. Common in Tibet,
What's a
I believe.
shocker?
It is a little bit, but I suppose different places, different cultures.
True.
So yes, your atafoi, the most famous example is Elpenor from Homer's Odyssey, the famous book. His body was not buried, leading his ghost to go and find Odysseus and ask for burial. So that's written back in a text that was written, wow, a couple of thousand years before Christ. So the Iliad and the Odyssey are very
At
old.
least he didn't end up like hitting or scratching anything. He just politely asked, "Can I be buried?"
Well, again, it depends on the type of ghost. So let's see. The next one we said are the auroi.
I mean, it can obviously like talk to you.
Yes, ghosts in ancient Greek stories, ghosts can absolutely talk to you, no problem. Now, the auroi are the spirits of those who died young before their time or before fulfilling their destiny, because it was believed everybody had a destiny. And these ones are generally depicted as being vengeful, so they're angry. And then you have the biothanatoi, which are those who died violently, especially if you died in war. And they were believed to be restless until you could go and find where they fell in battle and bury them properly.
Violently.
Yeah, so if you were fighting in a battle
Violently,
and
like
killed,
we're talking like murders.
or war, especially war. Yeah. And
I think the first thing that comes to mind when I say like violently is like you're stabbed, but you still lived, and then you got hit by a truck.
well, that would be fairly violent, yes. But not in ancient Greece, as there are no trucks, but nevertheless. Now, there were a number of places in ancient Greece that were said to be very haunted, including the plain of Marathon, which had a very important battle on it. And that's where, you know, if I say you've run a marathon,
Yeah.
okay, we get it from this place. There was a famous, very big battle on the plain of Marathon, and one of the soldiers then ran all the way back to warn the king that they had lost in the battle. And that's where we get the word marathon from. So it's actually a place in Greece. And in this big battle, a lot of people died. So very violently. So in Sparta, the ghost of General Pausanias is said to haunt the temple of Athena after his death. In Santorini, there are quite a few places where not only do you get ghosts, but you get the Vraikolakas, which is a vampire. So there you go. You got a varied selection of things.
What's a haunted place without a few ghosts and a vampire?
That's it. That's it. Then, interestingly, you also have a very special festival which shows how the ancient Greeks viewed the dead. And it is the Ancysteria. festival, the festival for the souls of the dead. And it's a time when they believed that they were briefly allowed out of Hades, and to come back and visit the living. And they would hold a big party and welcome their ancestors and before they were taken back to Hades. So, yes. Did you know that the god Hades, actually Hades wasn't his name?
What?
No, Hades was the place. He was the god of Hades. What his name was isn't known. So there you go.
So he was the god of a place
Hades.
of Hades.
Hades it's like if I said heaven is the place. Hades was what the Greeks said was the place where the dead went, all of them, one way or another.
So
But it was divided up into good bits and bad bits.
whatever his name was
well,
the, like
hey,
a leader of Hades, which is a place.
yeah. So who
Oh,
was
wow.
it? Hard to say. Now, amongst other things, you also got something which, in a way, is kind of like your soul, what they called an eidolon. Now, you have one while being alive, and you have one once you die, and it should move on with your spirit to wherever, to Hades, okay? But sometimes it can come away from your body and do things on its own. So it's a bit like the German idea of a doppelganger. Okay, so you've got a couple of different kinds of ghosts in Greece. So
Okay, that's nice.
we've got our varied varieties of the dead that could be out there. Some of them we don't have to worry about. They turn up and occasionally just ask for a proper burial. So that's all right. We don't mind them. You've got some which just
Imagine waking up and the ghost is bringing you tea.
Well, technically possible to the ancient Greeks. But now, while the god of Hades is the one in charge of all of that, at the same time, he wasn't the only one that controlled the dead. You also had two goddesses, Melinu and Hecate, who were in charge of different groups of the dead. So Melinu was there to oversee the offerings to the dead. So she was important in that regard. Okay, and if you didn't give proper offerings, she could get upset. Then, of course, you had Hecate, who was more in charge of getting revenge for the dead. So,
damn, I really need to stay away from Greece.
Well, ancient Greece at least. And they had all kinds of stories about people that had to deal with the Greeks, with the ghosts. And of course, they had different things as well. So ghosts were specifically eidolons and things like that. But you also had the daimonions, which are spirits, not ghosts. And then, of course, you had the phantasmas, which were supernatural activity that could be caused by anything from the gods to the ghosts. So there are a lot of things. Now, the most famous story, if you want to read about ancient Greeks, of course, is the story of Odysseus. Because he actually went down into Hades and had to interact with the dead in varying ways. So that's the greatest of the ancient ghost stories, the story of Odysseus. But we have plenty of other stories as well to consider. And the older versions, I think, while they make for great stories, they don't necessarily add too much to our modern understanding. But looking at places, Santorini, the island of Santorini, there's a huge amount of stories connected there. It's connected to the stories of Atlantis. It had a very catastrophic volcanic eruption around 1600 BCE, which destroyed the Minoan civilization. And they say that might have been the one that destroyed Atlantis as well. Who's to say? But plenty of things that could have caused ghosts, early deaths, etc., etc.
Have you done like the story of Atlantis yet?
No, that is going to be much further along in all the things, because it will be huge, of course.
Yeah.
So we
Probably
couldn't
gonna-
do it in
Probably gonna take us about like maybe 3 hours.
easily, and that just on its own. But in Santorini, the strongest myth, as I said, was the Vrykolakas, which is the Greek version of a vampire. So make of that what you will. So they say that you get quite a few ghosts and spirits that wander through the ancient abandoned villages at night. And right back from the 1800s, there have been quite a lot of stories of figures seen at night. And here is the thing that might answer one question for you. They cast long shadows across the beaches. So maybe ghosts do cast shadows. I don't know. They say that the island is, if you're interested in trying to see ghosts and paranormal things, you absolutely do have to go to Santorini. So there is that, if you will. Now let me find my notes quickly and look up.
I'm gonna head to sleep.
Are you going to head to sleep? Well, it's been great having you along. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
It's absolute pleasure. I do hope that you have a good sleep.
You too.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Okay, so as we are progressing, we are going to look up our vampire ghosts. Now, where did we put them? There we go. So, and we know the standard version, as it were, of a vampire, which comes from Europe, but in Greece they also have. So your Vrykolakas is a harmful undead creature. Generally, the closest equivalent is your vampire from Slavic mythology. But the interesting part is that the Vrykolakas doesn't only drink blood, it has a preference for eating flesh and is therefore in many ways more like a ghoul than a vampire. The origin of the word Vrykolakas comes actually from Bulgarian, the Varkolak. So it does have connections to the Slavic regions in that sort of way. and it may have links back to the idea also of a werewolf. So it kind of fits between vampire and werewolf in that kind of general direction. But the Greeks believed that anybody could become a vrikolakas after death if their life was sacrilegious in any way. Excommunication, burial in unconsidered ground, eating the meat of a sheep that has been wounded by a wolf or werewolf. That seems a bit of an odd one, but nevertheless, they come back as violent and wanting to eat people. Distinctive things is that they do not decay after the person's apparent death. They swell and even may attain a drum-like form, being large with ruddy complexion. And according to one account, fresh and gorged with new blood. And of course, people with red hair or grey eyes were immediately considered to be vampires. So tough luck if you're a redhead, I suppose. Legends say that you should never answer your door until after the second knock, because if you do, the vrikolakas can rush in and suffocate you by sitting on you, especially if you're asleep as well. They suffocate, kind of like a mare or an incubus from other folklores. They are absolutely cannibalistic with a particular taste, thank you, Jeffrey Dahmer, for human livers, and I believe Hannibal Lecter as well, with fava beans and a nice Chianti. Now, the only way to deal with such a thing is through exorcism, impaling, and beheading, and preferably the eventual cremation of the suspected corpse, so that it may be freed from its living death. Belief in these things was still common right up past World War II in rural areas. During the Great Famine from 1941 to 1942, about 300,000 Greeks starved to death, and many graveyards were so overfilled that families were forced to bury their loved ones outside cemeteries, hence on unconsecrated ground, and therefore were considered to quite possibly have come back as the vrikolakas. So there you go. So vampires, ghosts, ghoul type things, absolutely. They are out there and they might come and get you. But they are not the only things to worry about. There have been, in archaeology, a number of sites excavated that shows that there were a number of beliefs in the dead and in ghosts and more. And in fact, one rather interesting set of stories that I found in my research were burials that had in them an adult of indeterminate gender and stature, but where the head and feet of the individual were completely covered by amphorae. The heavy fragments of pottery were presumably intended to pin the individual in the grave and prevent it from either seeing or rising. So trapping the body in the grave, an idea perhaps designed to stop the vrikolakas from coming back. Another interesting one was in Attica in Greece. They found a lime kiln that was used as a gravesite for two dismembered individuals. The first body belonged to a woman cut horizontally in half. both halves placed parallel to one another in a prone position, and with her a small jar containing a single coin from the reign of Constantine, and a portion of the dismembered left leg of an adult male. After the deposition, the skeletons were deliberately sealed into the lime kiln with large rocks. Clearly, they thought that these ghosts were going to come back, and they made damn sure that they couldn't. Far more modern, they found on the island of Lesbos a Turkish cemetery from the Ottoman period where the person buried was literally nailed into their grave with 20-centimeter long nails. Clearly, they were very, very worried that they might be coming back. So you may make of that as you will, but nevertheless, and these stories about these things persist in literature and more to this day. So clearly it's a theme that has not been forgotten, even if they are not necessarily believed in anymore. And some of the old ways for dealing with these things absolutely did become somewhat cringy, where, like in the story of Odysseus, in his need to get into Hades and speak with the dead, he digs a trench, fills it with blood from sacrificial animals, adds milk, honey, and wine to pacify the restless dead, and the spirits gather, drawn by the vitality of the blood, each one desperate, even for the smallest taste. And among them are the spirits of his own deceased mother, Anticlea, whose mist-like form slips agonizing through his fingers as he tries to embrace her, and those of his fallen crewman, Elpenor, who pleads for a proper burial that he may find peace. So, yeah, feeding the dead and more. Definitely a thing in ancient Greece, at least. So the stories abound. As we troll along with our interesting things, we have the Dropholites, which refers to a long procession of visions seen by residents around the Franco Castello castle in the Sfakia region of Crete. It's rumored to be visible every year on the anniversary of the Battle of Franco Castello, sometimes a little earlier as well, near a small village nearby there. The visions described as by witnesses consist of a group of human-like shadows dressed entirely in black, walking or riding, armed with weapons, moving from the monastery of the Hagios Karalambos and advancing towards the old fort Franco Castello, a 14th century Venetian fortification. Legend has it that this group of people are Greek fighters that died during the Battle of Franco Castello, which happened in 1828, and since then they are seen marching towards the castle every year. The ghost army is said, at least, to be led by Hatzimichalis Dalianis from Delvinaki in Epirus. He is the chief of the Greek men, 350 of whom were lost in the battle. The army took refuge in the fort during the Greek War of Independence against the Turks, where they were killed after a 7-day siege. They are referred to by locals as dew shadows, which is quite pretty in many ways. due to the time of day that the phenomenon takes place. It is observed when the sea is calm and the atmosphere moist, and lasts for about 10 minutes, and they are visible from the valley at a distance of up to 1,000 meters. Many have tried to explain the phenomenon scientifically, that it might be a mirage or some such, but nobody seems to come up with a satisfactory answer, except for those who say, well, obviously, it's the ghosts. There have been a number of other places where similar such battles have occurred, and ghost armies have been seen in quite the same way. So perhaps there is something to it, and it is said that they appear so realistically that during the Second World War, a German patrol along the coast there actually opened fire on them, thinking that it was soldiers, and only realized afterwards when they charged at them that they were ghosts and therefore already dead. But with that rather joyful the next interesting one is called a Gello. Now, a Gello is a female demon or revenant who threatens the reproductive cycle, causing infertility, miscarriage, and infant mortality. And it comes from way back when, and they were actually considered to be a class of beings as such, and women believed to be under demonic possession by these Galords could even stand a trial or be subjected to forced exorcism. So, according to ancient myth, a Gello was a young woman who died a virgin and therefore returned as a ghost to do harm to children of others. It's an explanation, some say, of difficulties with childbearing and more in the early days, or perhaps it's just a demon, who's to say? But it's another one on the list. Now, Psychei. The Psychei are diminutive winged shades, and a kind of funerary lekithoi. These days, we would call it a soul, but that's not quite accurate. In the old legends, it kind of meant a life in a way. It doesn't have any connection to the consciousness or psychological functions of the living, really. And in the earliest versions, it sort of your life force, and they were said to be the most basic form of the dead that lurked around in Hades after the soul's death. The next interesting one is the Tarasippus, the horse disturberer, a ghost of some variety, blamed for frightening horses throughout Greece. Some Tarachippoi, I suppose, are associated with the Greek hero cults, or with Poseidon in his aspect as god of horses, which brought about the death of Hippolytus, Pausanias. As we know, the racing of horses was quite a thing in ancient Greece, and the race course of Olympia has one side longer than the other, and on the longer side there stands a passage through the bank, which has a sort of entry space, I suppose you would term it, in the shape of a round altar. And it said that horses being led through there are seized by a terrified state for no reason, and from the fear comes disturbance. The chariots would crash, and the charioteers become injured. And in order to counter this, drivers would go to the little altar that was set up there and offer sacrifices and prayers to the Tarakhipos in order to not have bad things happen to them. So a haunted place with a religious solution, if you will, that these horse spirits can cause trouble, and they turn up in a number of places from the Homeric era. In the Iliad, they are mentioned, where Achilles kills Hector for his for the death of his friend Patroclus, and then drives his chariot around the funeral pyre 3 times, dragging Hector behind. And this circling may have been a binding offering to the dead, to this horse spirit, to keep the dead in Hades so that they cannot return. So it goes back. And indeed, you will find even in the Roman era, they took on some of these ideas as well. So you may make of that as you will. But as we progress along, we have the story of the haunted bathhouse. And this actually goes back to the writings of Plutarch, a Greek ghost story where the ghost of a young orphaned boy called Damon haunted a bathhouse in Charonea in Greece. And according to the legend, the ghost haunted the place for centuries. And it is possible, I suppose, that if you could find that bathhouse even today, perhaps the ghost is still there. And certainly ghost stories have been favorites in writings for many, many centuries. So the idea of a bathhouse being haunted is in no way surprising at all. I mean, how many modern urban legends have we got of ghosts in bathrooms even now? So that's not a surprise at all. Again, in the biography about Simon, which was around 510 to 450 BC, in Charonea in Boeotia in central Greece, just east of Delphi, which was, interestingly enough, the birth town of Plutarch. They speak of this ghost story with this ghost in the bathhouse. And the writer of this says that he himself knew of this ghost, of Damon Peripoltas, that at this time the city was ravaged by war and poverty, making it a breeding ground for violence. And this Damon was a beautiful boy, more so than the rest, a descendant of Peripoltas, the ancient seer that led his people to Boeotia. And the descendants of a seer were held in high esteem. But although he was a beautiful boy, he was deemed to be a dangerous one. He was poor, untrained, and filled with rage, and had no problem with causing violence. Now, a Roman commander was wintering in Charonea with his unit, and one day this young Damon caught the commander's eye, and the commander decided he fancied him and made a pass at him. He tried to give gifts and presents to Damon, but Damon refused and was offended by the man's advances. It made the commander angry, and he then threatened the boy with violence and said he would send Damon into obscurity and poverty if he did not give in to him. Fearful of the repercussions that he would suffer at the hands of the Roman commander, he plotted against the man to get him before he was the one that ended up suffering. Now, he had grown up on the rough streets, and violence was all he knew, so he gathered 16 of his friends to help him with his plot. They smeared their faces with soot one night, got drunk on wine to gather courage, and they attacked the Roman commander as he was sacrificing to his gods in the marketplace. The crew of youngsters killed the Roman, and then they fled the city before they could be caught. According to Roman law in the city, this was punished by death, and this was the sentence the Council of Chaeronea gave them. So as the council sat to supper, Damon and his boys broke into the town hall where they were dining and killed all of them too. Now, of course, it was a big deal, and they became hunted by the Romans. There was an investigation where they tried to reach out to Damon because the city was apparently also considered to be in the wrong. But Damon was busy ravaging and pillaging the countryside, and they lured him back by appointing him as an official with a high honor that would lead to respect, which of course he was desperate for. But when he came, he was washing in the bathhouse, and they killed him. And they said that they would show him that you can't fight the law, and no matter what, you will never get away with murders like that. But of course, his ghost stayed in the bathhouse, sighing and groaning of the life that was cut short and from the betrayal. Now, because of this ghost in the bathhouse, the citizens walled the bathhouse shut, trying to keep him inside. And it was said, still in Plutarch's time, that neighbors could hear him inside trying to get out, to get at the people that had walled him in. And it was said his family still lived at that time nearby, and they are referred to as those in soot, those covered in soot, the Aspolomeni. My Greek is not good anymore, because of how Damon covered himself with soot to disguise himself when he committed his crimes. But there you go. A ghost that had a violent end and held a grudge for many centuries. Now, moving on a little to some of the places, there is a fortress in Thessalonica known as the Heptapyrogen Fortress. This fortress was once a prison, and it is said to be haunted by the spirits of former inmates and German soldiers who were stationed there during World War II. So we have a prison that is haunted, which is not uncommon at all. We have the castle of Methoni, where a slain Turkish sultan is supposed to have been seen, and which haunts there. There's the Davelis cave in Athens, once a place of worship and later associated with occultism, and that's not only said to have ghost paranormal activity, reports of black magic rituals, strange creatures, and UFO sightings. That sounds like quite an exciting one. You get the whole lot going there. Rapoto Stefan and Paleo Mavronoros are among the ancient Greek ghost towns where local legends report paranormal phenomena and more. And then, of course, there is the legend of Constances, who committed suicide and became a haunting ghost, which is now actually reenacted in the local carnival, where people dress up and have a procession which culminates in the Night of Spirits. So a number of interesting things to consider. The Castle Methoni, for example, which I gotta say, you know, when it comes to beautiful locations, Greece absolutely does have a couple of the top in the world. They really are quite amazing. But dating back to the 13th century, right on the sea, and by on the sea I mean surrounded by seawater, though it's got its connection to the coast, is this beautiful castle. Stunning, stunning views around. But here as well, they say that this Turkish sultan was murdered in the castle, and ever since there, visitors have encountered inexplicable sounds and whispers around the corridors, and some say they've even seen this man walking the halls. So full on a ghost of the variety we have come to expect in such places. There is also the monastery of St. John at Patmos, which obviously is where St. John ended up at the end of all. And there is a giant castle-like monastery from Byzantine times where St. John is said to have written the book of Revelation. But they say that beside the divine presence, shadows move through the candlelit chambers. Lights are seen dancing where there is nothing to light them. And cold spots and chilling winds move through the building. So it seems that it is not only St. John that is hanging around in here. Now, as we progress with our stories and our ghosts, I do ask you to remember that we rely on you in the keeping of going, as it were. So likes are demanded, shares requested, subscribe, please do, send gifts and more. We would love to have you to be part of our little family here. And it is always wonderful to have you along. Remember, we have only one rule: be nice. You can agree, you can disagree, and all the rest of it as you feel so moved, but do be polite about it. Now, the old town of Corfu is a rather labyrinthine town of Venetian elegance and colonial charm, but beneath the beauty of it and the wonderful stories are quite a selection of ghostly figures, lovers separated, soldiers from the past, and spirits with unfinished business. They say that the cobbled streets and alleyways are full of longing, unrequited love, and silent despair, where the ghosts of history have never left. Now, of course, we could not talk of Greece in any manner or form without referring to a couple of the places that are as old as they are. And the theatre of Epidaurus, of course, is ancient, and back in its day, no doubt, was thronged with amazing plays and more, and an open theatre under the stars, that they say is haunted, and you can hear a mere whisper from the stage right at the back due to its amazing construction, but sometimes the whispers are from things that are no longer there, and you can hear sounds that could not be made. So perhaps it has its echoes from the past as well as the present. The Palace of Knossos as well. Of course, if you know anything about Greek mythology at all, it's practically impossible not to have heard of the Minotaur. And of course, where was it, the Minotaur? It was in the palace at Knossos. So it is said that not just the horror of the Minotaur alone happened somewhere in this palace, but a great deal of others died and under tyrannical rules and more over the centuries. So a very haunted place with ghosts said to exist from all level of history. And of course, the most famous being the Minotaur itself. So there's a lot out there that you can learn and you can encounter in the ancient buildings. Now, one which I do want to have a look at is the Davelis Cave. Now, in Penteli in Athens, the second highest mountain, in fact, is the Davelis Cave, which once upon a time was known as a place where people went to worship Pan since antiquity. And in the Middle Ages, Christian hermits came and even built a church at the cave entrance. In the 20th century, it was strongly associated with occultism, and reports of all kinds of things about the place. And they say that not only are there ghosts in there and other strange things, demons and spirits, that it is a hotbed for UFO sightings around the area as well. So, maybe it may be. Now, an interesting spot as well in the Athenian suburb of Kifisia is a place called the Well of Souls. It's very hard to find, though it's well known. It's quite hidden in reeds and sealed shut by a giant cement block with symbols written on it. Legend has it that it was the home of several haunted spirits that would appear to passers-by, and according to legend, in 1945, a local tried to shoot one of the ghosts, and because he attacked it, he fell ill the next day and died shortly afterwards. And after that, it was sealed shut to keep the spirits inside. Who's to blame here? The ghosts protecting themselves, or the people? Hard to say. Difficult one, I think. The next interesting place is a cemetery, of all places. Many thanks for the likes there. That's very kind of you. I do appreciate greatly. Built in 1837, the first cemetery of Athens is the final resting place for revolutionary heroes, actors, poets, politicians, and important societal people. Located behind the Panathinaik Stadium, the cemetery is open to the public and is quite spectacular, with some really, really incredible sculptures. However, At night, the resident ghost of Nicholas Batsaris, a wreath bearer who worked in the cemetery until he died there, is often seen sitting by a wreath, and right next door to it is Loginos, the hill next to the cemetery, where the remains of a large number of German soldiers were buried, apparently, and the Germans are seen on the next hill. So the Greeks in their place and the Germans in theirs. We also have a rather interesting story about the Riviotissa cemetery. It's a little cemetery in the small hamlet outside of Sparti, and it is haunted by the ghost of Ioannis Kokoutsis, a humble butcher that went completely bonkers and murdered his wife with his favorite butcher's knife, and now his lamenting spirit haunts the cemetery grounds at night. Welcome back, Vortex, and much thanks for the likes going there. We always appreciate a good like. So yeah, some suitably creepy places. We also have the old sanatorium, Mount Parnitha, home to an abandoned sanatorium that was built in 1917 to treat tuberculosis patients. It was shut down in the 1960s and then bought and renovated as the Xenia Hotel, but couldn't resist competition from other hotels nearby. It shut down. Then it started to be a school of tourism until the 1980s. These days, however, visitors say that strange happenings occur therein. You have weird drops in temperature, strange voices and noises, and ghosts, including a little girl that cries and begs for water. That sounds suitably creepy. Then, of course, you have the Red House on the corner of Hagia Sophia and Ermo in Thessalonica, a beautiful mansion built in 1926 by Gennari for the industrialist Giannis Logu. But weird things started happening right away. Halfway through the building, the construction company went bankrupt. It was then had part of it destroyed in fire. Several cases of paranormal activity have been reported, voices, specters, and even certain people driven to suicide inside the building because of what goes on. It was then abandoned for over 40 years, and with typical Greek savoir-faire, it now has a coffee shop. Hey, good coffee can counter any ghost. Isn't that true? Perhaps. So, in Greece, we have vampires. We have ghosts. We have a number of demons and spirits and more. We have witches, of course, without a doubt. And such things are expected. But by and large, I would say that it is fair to say that the ghosts do fit to more or less the standard. It's the cryptids that vary the most. We all know about the Empusei, the Lamia, the Strigas, and more that exist. And of course, the fact that the gods and goddesses quite happily wandered around doing as they would. Empuse was the daughter of Hecate and was a demonic bronze-footed creature that drank blood, much like a vampire. feasting on young men that she had seduced. The Lamia, the daughter of King Belus, when secret lover of Zeus, when Hera found out of Zeus's infidelity, she killed all of Lamia's offspring, and as a result, she went bonkers and preyed on young children for vengeance, sucking their blood. The Striga, like Lamia, enjoyed a good child, but also preyed on adults, creatures that had the bodies of birds and the heads of humans, and were in part slightly more ghoul-like in that way. So they've got more than their fair share of vampires in Greece and ghoul-like creatures, but fortunately, perhaps they lack a number of the other nastier cryptids. However, as we know that the way to protect yourself if you are in Greece is to have the all-seeing eye, and there are a great many of these amulets around which you can get to ward off the darker creatures of the night. So yeah, there is that load, as it were. I'm going to point out, however, that we can't really do the cryptids for Greece by and large, not because there aren't any, because there are just so many. You could barely begin, from the Nemean lion to the chimera and more. So absolutely there are tons and tons and tons, which makes it a little bit difficult to even begin in that regard. But we will try to touch on a couple at least, just for the good thereof. We all know about the Minotaur, with the head of a bull and the body of a man, confined within the labyrinth on Crete. We have the Chimera, with the lion's head and body, and a goat's head on its back, and a snake for a tail, and it could breathe fire. We have the Cyclopses, the one-eyed giants, cave-dwelling monstrosities. We have Cerberus, or Kerberos, the three-headed dog and guardian of the underworld. We have the great sea monster, Scylla, often living apparently in a cliffside cave somewhere with multiple heads. There are the sirens, which are your mermaid type version things, though instead of being the head and torso of a woman and the body of a fish, the siren is slightly different in that it has the body of a bird and the head of a woman, not unlike your Stygia, but known to lure sailors to their death with their enchanting songs, so kind of mermaid-like. Your Lamia demon, which we've just mentioned, your Impuse, that ghoul-like vampire, the Kalikanthakros, a small black goblin-like creature that is said to be active on the 12 days of Christmas. I'm not entirely sure how it really fits in with everything, but there you go. The Drakos, which is their version of a dragon, guardians of treasure and more. The Vrikolakas, the vampires, undead ghost-like creatures that return from the grave. And of course then your Nereids, beautiful spirits of nature, sometimes good, sometimes bad. It depends on how you approach them. there's a whole lot of different cryptids that we could go on and on and on about and warn you of, because after all, there are quite a few. I mean, we all know about the Sphinx and the centaurs, the harpies, and more. That there are just so many. It is a rich, rich history. But what we are going to mention is one that they do not have. And strangely enough, there are no tales of anything even slightly like a Bigfoot in Greece. You don't get them there. Why not? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't like islands. We know that we've done a number of islands around the world where there just aren't any. So perhaps islands are not good for Bigfoots. However, they do have jinn. Perhaps it is the influence of the past. As we know, Turkey has a big influence on Greek history as well. So perhaps it comes from that, but they have jinn very much in the way described as is described in Islamic stories. So we do at least have that to go on. Strange shadow creatures with glowing red eyes that don't quite live in this world, but also don't quite not. That sometimes can be quite physical, sometimes more shadow-like, and sometimes completely invisible and not around, that prefer, by and large, more deserted places, and are another race rather than simply to be considered as like a ghost or a spirit. So, three kinds of strange beast that do exist in Greece, but no Bigfoot. But the ghosts, by and large, do fit exactly to what we expect of ghosts. They seem to be the same and act the same as in many places around the world, except in one point, which was raised by a young gentleman in our earlier part of the live. Do ghosts have shadows? And we seem to think not, but Greek ghosts might, in some cases, have shadows. What do you think? Let me know. I would be very interested to find out. And as we end off, I'm going to remind you all, please do like, share, subscribe. Join in future as well. We do a 10 o'clock live South African time every night except Sunday, unless things go pear-shaped and I can't. So that's GMT +2, and you would be very much welcome to join, as long as you are polite. It's our only rule on the channel. You are not expected to agree or disagree by any manner or forms. And we would love to have you. We want lots of comments and lots of interaction. So please do join me in the future. But until then, I thank you very, very greatly for being a part of this live. And I wish you good night. Sleep well, sleep sweet, but sleep with one eye open. And do be careful, because sometimes the things out there that go bump in the night might go bump for you.